Welcome to the Troy Talk Podcast, your home for anything and everything sports. Sit back, enjoy, and here's your host, Troy.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Troy Talk Podcast, your home for USC sports. We have a ton to get to today in response to today's victory against Purdue, including pass defense, penalties, offensive execution, position grades, and much more. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you're enjoying the content and help the podcast get to 300 subscribers. All right, where do we even start? So USC defeats Purdue 33-17, improving to 3-0 on the season, starting off Big Ten Conference play 1-0, winning on the road east of Colorado for the first time since Matt Barkley and Marquise Lee beat up Syracuse, which was back in my, freshman year of college. But the question is it good enough? And I don't think there's a simple answer to that question, but I'll try to be as simplistic as possible. It's not good enough. But we also have to take into consideration, what is this team, right? I predicted 9-3, which I was bullish considering I think the win total was 7.5. This team is not going to go 12-0. It's very unlikely. So we need to kind of take a step back and assess, hey, there are deficiencies. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed and improved on. But this was a game last year we might have lost. And we saw a lot of improvement on the things that were losing us this football game last year. We were running a little bit better in the fourth quarter. The defensive execution towards the end of the game, making the plays they needed to do, was excellent, and they didn't just get run over like we did last year in Big Ten Conference play. But I do want to touch on some of the things that I saw today, and first we'll go over a game recap, and then I'll get to my takeaways. Started the game off strong, I thought. We got a stop on the first possession, drove the ball downfield, and stalled in the red zone, which is you're going to see as a common theme in this podcast. I'm going to keep bringing it up. That was the one knock on the offense I will say today. Purdue got the ball and drove the ball down the field. They seem to be doing that a little bit more than I would have liked, kind of throwing the ball at will especially, but Bishop Fitzgerald got the interception. And I wanted to touch on Purdue's offense a little bit because it definitely was better than I thought it would be. They had 357 total yards, which is fine. I mean, I think I got in a discussion with somebody that said 350 yards is too much to be giving, which, I mean, it's not an elite defense by any means, but, the LSU's, Clemson's of the world, they do have that kind of 350 yards. I think, I bet you it was even worse when LSU won the national championship a couple years ago. But moral of the story is it's fine. It's whatever. Probably needs to be better. The game script is always going to dictate a little bit more passing yards. 305 yards is a lot to give up, especially to someone of Ryan Brown's caliber. And that's not to be a knock on Ryan Brown because he actually impressed me a lot today, but USC should not be giving up 300 yards against Ryan Brown. That Purdue's offense was well coached. Josh Henson did a really good job. Hit us with that RPO, which I'll talk about a little bit later. We did hold them to 52 yards rushing. That's including sacks, so a little bit more yards than that, which is respectable. I mentioned Devin Mockabee being a very good player, and I think we held him to less than 4 yards per carry, which is very good. But we really couldn't get off the field. That was one thing I wanted to highlight, and something that D'Anton Lynn is known for is third down defense. And today I think we were 7 for 14, which is 50%, and that's not good enough, especially when those third downs weren't like the 3rd and 1s and 3rd and 2s that we were giving up. It was more like a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10. After a really good, havoc play where we get a tackle for loss or a sack, we just let them right back into it and keep the momentum up. Because I think a lot of the reason this game wasn't a blowout is we didn't step on their throats early enough and we let them keep a momentum and think that they were going to win the game, or at least think that they could win the game. USC would go on to score twice in the second quarter and holding Purdue to 3 points. So 17-3 at halftime, very good in my opinion. I would take 17-3 every half for the rest of my life. But unfortunately, the second half was very, very sloppy. I thought you saw the offensive execution turtle a little bit and not be as good. The defense was just letting Ryan Brown do whatever he wanted. Really couldn't get off the field, like I mentioned, and couldn't score touchdowns, which we'll talk about in my offensive execution takeaway. But that needs to get better. But overall, USC pulled it out. They made plays when they needed to. Didn't cover the spread this time, but any Big Ten road victory, I'm going to take it. So first takeaway for me, I want you, let me know in the comments what you guys think about each of these takeaways, if you agree or disagree, or what your takeaway was for the game. First one I wanted to talk about was pass defense. I got a bunch of texts about this. People wanted me to cover this. It wasn't good. I'm just going to be blunt about it, but I don't think it tells the whole picture. And I think there was a reason why it wasn't as good other than just poor execution at times. Lynn definitely had more of a bend, don't break mentality today. In the secondary, nothing over the top was happening. They did do a good job limiting those big chunk plays over the top. But that's fine, awesome. But I don't feel like he really adapted well to the RPO system of Josh Henson until the end. And you could see a lot of similarities between Josh Henson and Lincoln Riley's offense. He took a lot from Lincoln Riley, so kudos to him on kind of adapting his own offensive philosophy. For example, that RPO slant, peak slant, whatever you want to call it, was cooking USC the whole game. Basically, what they were doing is drawing the linebackers in to stop Devin Mockabee, and then the quarterback would just throw that slant play. And it was basically our cornerbacks on an island with no help, and you saw them had a lot of big chunk plays on with that. The way you counter that is obviously you either one, have a rover, which you saw Bishop Fitzgerald at the end of the game, did exactly that in like a cover one situation, basically read the quarterback's eyes, predict it, jump it, interception. Other things you could do is drop like Eric Gentry, Desmond Stevens into coverage, but the way that's a little tough is because that limits the run gaps, right? You don't have Eric Gentry and Desmond Stevens filling the run gaps, then Ryan Brown's just going to let Devin Mockabee run the ball. So it was well executed, I thought, from Purdue. I just thought Lynn could have maybe changed it up a little bit earlier, but you saw him, mess with it a little bit at the end, and we reaped the rewards. Other people were criticizing the soft zone coverage, and I do see that. I'm a little bit more lenient with that soft zone coverage complaint because I don't think it's as easy as playing press man on somebody with no over the top help. It just doesn't work like that. We can't just do that first off, we don't have the personnel to do that. And second off, that's just not the scheme. But I just think it was more of an execution thing than an actual scheme thing. I thought Marcellus Williams and DeCarlos Nicholson had shaky games. They were a little bit slow to react on plays. I didn't hear a whole lot of DJ Harvey's name, which is good and bad. I guess we'll talk about it in the grade. The safeties did a good job. I thought obviously Kamari had a decent game and whatnot, but Bishop had 2 interceptions. But we just need to, I think, be a little bit quicker and aggressive with basically those curl routes, those out routes, those 12-yard pass routes, whatever you want to call them. We're just a little slow today. That's the moral of the story. That can be improved. Film is going to help tremendously with this performance, and I think we're going to take it into next week. Aiden Childs isn't like the biggest thrower next week, so I don't think we'll get shredded up too much like we did this week, but knock on wood, that doesn't happen. Another thing I wanted to bring about with the soft pass defense, a lot of it's because of the aggression that Lynn's implementing. You saw 5 sacks today, 10 tackles for losses, so a lot of blitzing and a lot of just the defensive linemen trying to get into the backfield and create havoc. Not to mention a lot of missed holds, so I think that could have been even better. But with that kind of pass rush, with that kind of scheme, you're going to have a little bit of emptiness, I like to call it, in the back of the defense, which maybe we're going to have to adapt a little bit against better throwing teams like your Oregons out there. But I have full faith in Lynn. He's a very good defensive coordinator. I don't want to be too hard on him. We just need to see improvement from today. That's all. Penalties. So double-edged sword here. I think some of these penalties were straight up bad calls. Like, that's just it. The hold on Jakeem Stewart was horrendous, wasn't a penalty at all. You could even argue he was being held. The late hit on Anthony Lucas, just a split second after the ball was thrown. I don't think that's anything wrong there. And then a couple missed no calls on late hits that would have benefited USC and would have prolonged drives and maybe given us more momentum. You saw one finally called at the end of the game, which is great that they called it, but I mean, the ref that was looking right at it wasn't going to call it until the other ref called it. So they were definitely giving Purdue a little bit of leniency, and that's going to happen, right? Underdog on the road in conference play, USC is not going to get calls, but that doesn't mean that there's not things that can be cleaned up. And I think part of it's discipline, and part of it's finding that balance that you don't want to take away the aggression that you're having while still being able to create plays and make a bunch of difference-making plays on defense while still just not doing these hands-of-the-face penalties. There was another one today. You had Jacoby Lane going to the offensive side, had a holding play that was really silly. And then obviously the Walter Matthews one, that's kind of a tough one because you could argue he was just jumping vertically and the Purdue people took him out. But the question I would ask is, why are we even doing that in the first place? We got to stop. Let's just get the ball back. We're not going to block the kick anyway. It's just kind of a silly play and something we didn't need. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought about the penalties. I didn't want to just be like, oh, USC 10 penalties is bad on USC. It was, but there was nuance to this as well. I thought it was a very poorly officiated game. Okay, offensive execution. Last takeaway for me. Worrisome in some ways, promising in others. The 5 field goal attempts was the one thing I wanted to bring up. Against Purdue, a defense of this caliber, while they impressed me and while Barrium's a very good defensive coach, it's inexcusable. We need to be scoring more touchdowns, putting these people away and not letting them have any faith that they can even win the game. I thought Riley called a good game for the most part. We moved the ball pretty well. I think we had somewhere close to 400 total yards on the road in Big Ten Conference play is pretty dang good, but really struggled in the red zone. I thought one thing he did do well today was the 4th down plays. I think he had one to Walker Lyons, one to Lake McCree, one to Mekhi Lemon. Those are some really well schemed plays. And I thought for the most part, calling some good plays to get us down the field. It was just the lacking the end product, which we saw a lot last year. We saw it against UCLA last year, to name a couple of the games, but I think Lincoln's going to know it. He's going to say he could have called a better game, but it was just basically end product. That's it. I also didn't agree with kicking some of the field goals. I think anytime it's 4th and 3 with a Lincoln Riley offense, we should be going for it, although the kicker did a great job today. And I guess offensive execution can't be that bad if we didn't punt at all. So got to be fair and objective in that regard. But Lincoln's going to call better games throughout the season. I can assure you that. Okay, so let's get to position grades. So quarterback, I'm going to give him a B, maybe a little high for you out there. Let me know in the comments what you think about these grades. But the reason I'm going to do it is 282 yards, nothing to scoff at. He had 10 yards per attempt, no interceptions, which is the big thing. I'm always going to pound the table for Jaden Mayav. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over, he's going to win us football games. I think he missed on a couple throws because his pocket presence was a little off, and I'm not sure if that was him trusting the offensive line, not trusting the offensive line, I should say, or just getting happy feet. I think he evaded the pocket a little bit more when he could have stayed in there. But I mean, made a couple really good throws, some slot seam throws, a couple throws he'd probably like to have back. Overall, solid game. Nothing spectacular, but definitely not bad. So I wanted to give him a B here. Running backs. So B- might be a little bit of a high grade for them. And I'll explain why I put this. Waymon Jordan had a very tough start. I thought he looked very timid to start the game, wasn't hitting the holes as he's capable of, and letting Purdue just kind of, you know, penetrate the offensive line and stop him in the backfield. The line didn't help him either. We'll get to the offensive line in a bit. But the reason I wanted to give this a B- was Eli Sanders. I thought looked great today, 10 carries, 75 yards. What more could I ask for him there? King Miller had some really good, valuable reps, especially with Brian Jackson being a little bit banged up. It's great that we have a solid third option to give Waymon Jordan, Eli Sanders a little bit of rest. So overall, just really solid. And I think obviously could have been better, but really just the depth is the thing I wanted to point out. Very good depth and surprising depth. I didn't think it was going to be this good, but nice to know we have somebody to pick up Waymon Jordan if he's not having a really good game. Okay, so wide receivers, tight ends. I'm going to give this a B+. It was a solid game from the receivers. I had some good plays. Jacoby had some, good long passes. Looked like Dwayne Jarrett out there. Sanook Hines made a great catch early on in the game and almost had an incredible one-handed catch in the end zone, which would have been another SportsCenter one-handed catch from USC. But the reason I'm giving this the B+ is I thought the tight ends were fantastic today. Lake McCree had another great game. I think it was 3 catches, 3 yards. 67 yards. Sorry. That verticality in the tight end passing game is really opening up this offense and adding another element. Walker Lyons is doing a great job blocking the flat routes. He's a weapon on 4th down or 3rd and short. And I think you're seeing Lincoln kind of trust him a little bit with his pass routes, and his yards after catch is really good. So next thing I want to talk about is the offensive line. One of the worst grades I'm going to give all day today. I'm probably going to be a little bit harsh here considering Jaden didn't get sacked, but they made Purdue look a little bit more competent and disruptive than I think they are. Run game was slow to start, better at the end. Obviously, in the fourth quarter, we ran the ball kind of down their throats a little bit to eat up some time. Jaden didn't have as many crisp pockets as I would have liked, which I think led to him being get a little bit of happy feet, which isn't good. Just nothing really jumped out today. There wasn't like a dominating performance on the offensive line. So I expect more from them, and they'll be better, right? I think they'll be better against Michigan State next week and the rest of the season. Defensive line, I'm going to give them an A-. I think I saw Sue Craven's grade, who I tend to agree with actually with his grades. He gave them like a C or something like that. I think that's a little bit harsh. I thought the pass rush was good with 4 down linemen. Obviously, we blitzed a little bit better, but I thought the interior looked great. We had, Floyd Boucard flashed on the screen anytime I saw him, causing disruption in the backfield. Devin Tompkins, I thought, had a good game, got to the quarterback there at the end, causing that pick six. Obviously, we had a thick six. Jaw Jarrett, 360-pounder, scoring a touchdown. You got to give at least a B+ to an A- there. But Anthony Lucas showed some good plays, got heavily or harshly penalized with that late hit. And run defense was much better. I thought we held our gaps a little bit better. Held Devin Mockabee to under 4 yards per carry. You would have told me that before the game started. I would have taken it every day of the week. So wanted to give them their kudos. I thought they played really well. Linebackers, I'm going to be a little bit more harsh with them. C+. I thought Eric Gentry had a roller coaster to the game, which he seems to be having that every game. There's a lot of good, a lot of bad. He had 2 sacks, was tackling all over the field, but he did make that really costly mistake of letting the ball slip through his hands, not finishing the play there, and then they scored that fluke touchdown, which would have limited Purdue to 10 points. So I'm sure he'll tell you he should have caught the ball. Some people were saying bat it down. I think you make the play there. You're an athlete. Go score a pick six, right? And that could have changed the complexion of the game completely. Desmond Stevens still looked a little slow out there. It was a little bit better, made some plays out there, but just think he's thinking too much. He's just got to get out there and play. He was getting absorbed by the offensive lineman, not shedding his blocks. Jaden Walker once again flashed on a couple of plays. He's a little bit more aggressive than Desmond Stevens. Obviously, Des has a little bit more responsibility calling the plays and setting everybody up, which I think is contributing a little bit to his lackluster play to start the season. Tamir Robinson had a couple good plays. I think you saw when he kind of gashed it was a counter play going to the left, just hit him on the backside, got a tackle for loss there. So I thought he's flashed every time I've seen him on the screen. So I think both Jaden Walker and Tamir Robinson are both clamoring for playing time with their play, and I think you'll see it, especially if Desmond Stevens doesn't step it up. All right, secondary. I think it's this one's tough to give I was thinking D, but then Bishop Fitzgerald had 2 interceptions, so I settled on a C. I thought they were slow to react on a lot of the plays. Our starting corners were, lackluster. I don't even think I saw Chasen Johnson out there today. I'm not even sure if he played. Bishop Fitzgerald did have 2 interceptions, but did miss that crucial third down stop when Michael Jackson in the flat route. So that is something to note there. Kamari, I think, needs to assert himself a little bit more. It really feels like he's kind of covering for everybody and making sure that he's limiting any big plays behind him. He's like thinking of how I need to save someone else instead of just playing fast. He did have that really good blitz, which caused the pick six. So kudos on that. I think film's going to help a lot. I mentioned earlier, this is going to be great for the young defensive backs and just what we can fix and what we can improve when we face these more pass-heavy offenses. Special teams, I'll briefly talk about. I'm going to give him an A-. Can't give him an A because there is a missed field goal, but very solid 4 out of 5. Ryan Sari had a great game. He's filling in admirably for Caden Chinton. Obviously, no punts, so that's good. And one thing I wanted to talk about, kickoff return coverage the last year or two has been elite. I feel like credit to Coach Doherty on that one. It really feels like that was a weakness a couple years ago, and it's just been like, I feel like they haven't had any gaps to do anything, and it's just been very solid overall. So wanted to tip my cap there. Coaching, I'm going to give a C+, mostly because I thought Lynn was a little slow to adapt to the RPO, and Lincoln Riley had a little bit of struggles in the red zone, but overall got a 16-point victory on the road in Big Ten play. That's pretty solid in my book. And so overall, that's why I'm going to give them a B-. I think there's a lot of room to improve. I'm probably a little bit more optimistic. You'll probably give them a C, but let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Players of the game, I've been forgetting to do this on the podcast. I kind of debated on who I wanted to give it for the offense. Jaden Mayava was the only one I settled on because he looked composed out there. He was a leader, threw for 282 yards, ran for a touchdown. It was a solid game, but there wasn't really anybody that had a fantastic game. So I settled on Jaden there. Bishop Fitzgerald was who I settled on for defense. Again, had that one mistake, but 2 interceptions, very clutch interceptions. He's kind of a boomer bust player so far, but a really valuable addition in that safety room and is giving us kind of that X factor back there that we haven't been having. Kamari's kind of been all alone back there. Let's see, another thing. I was thinking about giving it to Josh Jarrett just for the thick 6, but I settled on Bishop Fitzgerald. All right, so Troy Talk picks, we will end it out that way. We are 10-6 on the season as of right now, I think. Actually, I think it's 11-6 because the Texas A&M game just finished. We got the Arizona money line on Friday. Arizona just absolutely dominated them. It shouldn't even been close. Kansas State is in total dismay. Their quarterback's probably going to get benched by the end of the season, and I wouldn't even be shocked that coach is on the hot seat toward the end of the season, which is crazy to say because Kansas State is like the bastion of consistency and just being solid. Something's going on in Manhattan, Kansas. We need to figure out what's in the water over there. Georgia versus Tennessee, fantastic game, but I called it halfway through. I knew we were going to get hooked. We had -3.5. Georgia won by 3. Very brutal. I think if it was flipped in overtime, we might have had a chance to win it there, but I think overall, probably Tennessee should have won the game, so we were even lucky to get there. Old Dominion, Virginia Tech, I'm going to pat myself on the back there. Called that from a mile away. We had Old Dominion plus 7.5. They won by like 20-something points. Absolutely dominated Virginia Tech. Blacksburg, there's going to be some, I would be shocked if their coach is the head coach at the end of this weekend. He's going to get tarmacked like Lane Kiffin did because that was an unacceptable performance. They started off 0-3, and it's just, with all the talent that they have, it's not good. Texas A&M narrowly pulled out a victory, 41-40 over Notre Dame. Got a little bit lucky that Notre Dame fumbled the snap. Otherwise, we could have maybe not covered at all and just pushed it. But I think it was the right play. Texas A&M matched them pound for pound. Every time Notre Dame scored, Texas A&M would come right back. Anything over a touchdown, like I said, was solid, and it got to the window for us. And then lastly, Minnesota at Cal. I think as of recording this podcast, Minnesota was down 3. I think I just need to stop fading Cal. Even if Minnesota comes out and wins this for us, Cal is much better than I anticipated. Wilcox is cooking over there. Their quarterback, true freshman quarterback, is all world. So I'm just going to stay away from them. 3-1 so far this week, which is good. 10-6 on the season, 3.3 units. I'm loving it. Let's keep it up. So once again, I wanted to thank you guys for hanging with me with this podcast. Thank you again for the support. If you would like a sticker, just shoot me an email at troytalk3@gmail.com. I will send you a free sticker, and we're almost to that 300 subscribers. So please subscribe if you haven't already, and just wanted to be very thankful that you're allowing me to fulfill my dream of being a pseudo USC journalist that I've always wanted to be as a kid. Because obviously this is a passion project and not my day job, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it through the first 3 weeks of the season. And I'm going to continue doing it the rest of the season and hopefully into the future as well. So thank you again, and we will see you again next time.